Hey Katelyn, how's it going? I'm so excited to talk today.
Yeah, it's going pretty good. I'm excited as well.
Well, just to set the stage, I would love to hear a little bit about what you're currently working on and introduce yourself.
I started in sales in 2004, and I was always a top contributor. Fast forward about 10 years, I realized that my actual favorite part of the day was when I would figure out a tip or a trick that would get me
Hmm.
results and teach it to the rest of my team. And that is when I realized that sales enablement was what I gravitated towards. And so I've been in sales enablement now for a little over 10 years. I'm a sales enablement leader. And right now I am doing sales enablement and sales leadership consulting.
Very cool. Are you doing consulting for both sales enablement and sales leadership?
Yes, yes, because they are so intertwined. And yeah, and one of my pillars that I stand on is the need for more enablement on the leadership side.
That's really interesting. I want to dive into that in a second. Tell me, I'd be curious from your experience. What are the main new perspectives you've got from being on the consulting side versus in the operator side?
Yeah, new perspective I've gotten is I help a lot people define what type of sales enablement they want to hire and what they want their sales enablement to look like. So, sales enablement is wildly different from company to company, and some people see it as more, I say more of like you get a sticker, you check the box, you take the
Hmm.
certification, and other people see it as a strategic sales leader. So it's helping people define which do we need and which direction are we going in.
Got it. Okay, very cool. So you just mentioned how you feel like sales enablement and sales leadership are very closely connected. Can
Yep.
you say more about that?
Yes, totally. So I personally gravitate towards startups. They're the type of company that I love working with. And a lot of times in a startup, you're going to have your founding AE who is selling the product, and then they start doing so well selling the product that all of a sudden they're a sales leader, and it's
Mm.
great. And now you have like your head of sales, and now you're going to hire out more people in your company, but you always have to think back to the fact that this person was a player and now they're a coach, and what have we done to get them from A to B other than them being good at A? Doesn't necessarily translate into them being good at B. And that is what I try to help a lot of people take a step back from and help the sales leaders with, because so often when you are in that position, when you get promoted from player to coach, it's hard to raise your hand and be like, whoa, I'm on the other side now. What am I doing?
Right, right, totally. So, simple question: how do you define sales enablement? Like, what is the difference between sales enablement versus just sales coaching or something along those lines?
Yeah, I think sales enablement, when people think of sales enablement, they tend to think of two main things. They think of onboarding, and they think
Hmm.
of new product updates. So either you just got here and you need to figure out how to do your job, or your job's now changed because the product has changed, and let us help you figure that out. What I define it as is those two things plus so much more. So
Hmm.
I'm going to add in, like I talked about, like sales leadership training. I'm going to add in everboarding, or just leveling up on how to do your job. Just because you are 90 days in and you've kind of hit the ground running and you're making sales doesn't mean that you know all of the best practices or you know everything there is to know about sales. So it's not only getting them to a point where they can do their job, but getting them to a point where they're doing their job better and better and better and better.
Interesting. In general, what would you say is the big trend or problem you're trying to figure out or develop a point of view on in sales enablement?
I think with the consulting I'm doing now, it's helping sales orgs understand how to approach sales enablement in general.
Hmm.
Like I said, there's a lot of different ideas of what it is, and a lot of people have worked with the different kinds of sales enablement people. And so, if somebody is a sales leader and they've worked at a company where their sales enablement has traditionally taken like we're just here to do certifications, to tell you something, and then have you take a quiz on it and make sure we check that box. You're going to have a very different attitude towards them. Whereas if you worked for a company that saw your sales enablement like a strategic sales leader and somebody that can actually help an active deal, like close active deals that are in play.
Makes sense. What are like, as you've kind of got into doing consulting and seen a bunch of orgs, what are people struggling with or not doing right?
I would say people are struggling drawing the lines between sales managers and sales enablement. Like what should actually be on the sales enablement person's plate and what should actually be on the sales manager's plate. And they're also struggling with helping sales enablement and sales leadership be on the same page and feel like they are the same voice. I see so many orgs that will, have their product marketing and their sales enablement, work so hard on these new initiatives that they're putting out there, and then do very little to bridge the gap between product marketing and sales enablement and sales managers, to where the sales managers are like, cool presentation, I'm going to keep managing the way I've been managing, or maybe I don't fully understand what was presented to me, so I'm going to support it in theory, but in action, I'm not really sure how to help my team do it.
Right.
So helping that gap right there.
When do you need to think about these as two separate roles? Because you said like a lot of orgs are struggling with the delineation between sales management and sales enablement, but obviously at some point in the life cycle of a company, early stage, it's really the same role. When do you need to start thinking about them as two separate functions, and then when do you need to actually have two separate roles?
Right. I think the moment that too much is on the sales leader's plate to do it all, and the moment you start having different job titles on your sales team. I've walked into so many orgs where we have an SDR function and we have an AE function and maybe we have an account management function, who the leaders are running all of the enablement, all of the training. They're all duplicating efforts. They're all like running their own onboarding. They're running their own updates on products, where they need that third party to come in and say, hey, you guys are teaching things one way. You guys are teaching things one way. You are duplicating their efforts. Like, let's combine all of these so that we have time for more types of training and leveling people up in more ways, other than let me get you in your seat and as quickly as possible have you figure out kind of how to do your job.
Right. That's it. That's really interesting insight. Tell me, you mentioned kind of like, what are some of the mistakes? What are the best teams doing with sales enablement these days?
Yeah, I think some of the people who are doing it right they have sales enablement involved in go-to-market discussions. So the top sales enablement leaders, they know exactly what's going on in all of marketing. They know exactly what's going on in all of CS. They know exactly what's coming down the pike product-wise, why it's happening, and what we need to do to help it. They also have a clear focus on training leadership. Like I said, that's something that I think is lacking in a lot of orgs. So actually taking the time to train the sales leaders, whether that's on leveling up on parts of the tools that maybe they don't even understand aren't being used by their team, or maybe now that they're in their seat, you're going to use like so many reporting and analytics tools that you just never have even ventured into before. They are the orgs that are doing it right are also the people above all of these departments are making sure that sales enablement is aligned with all of other leadership, and that the direction they're going in is an agreed upon direction, so that everyone is backing what they're doing and they're not siloed between go-to-market functions. I see a lot of orgs, even orgs that are doing sales enablement right, are still not giving their marketing onboarding justice or their CS onboarding justice. It's like you're throwing these resources at sales when the rest of go-to-market needs to know like half of the stuff that the sales enablement people are putting out.
I'm curious, like we talked a little bit about sort of the differences between sales management and sales enablement. One of the things we haven't talked about that maybe I was expecting to hear in your earlier definition is kind of like product marketing to sales enablement. It seems like a lot of, at least what I've seen in the past, is that some of the stuff about sales enablement is around giving materials and decks or articles or whatever it might be to help sales in their journey. I'm curious what you're seeing on that side of the equation.
Yeah, I always say when I am a sales enablement person at a company, I feel like the product marketing person is like the other half of my team. Like a lot of the time, if I were to find like a 1-2 punch, it's product marketing and sales enablement. So that relationship is so incredibly important.
Right.
And what it tends to boil down to is product marketing they partner together, but product marketing will end up putting out something that is intended for prospecting audiences. And then sales enablement will take that and put it out intended for sellers to use. So they take everything that product marketing does that's meant for an exterior person, and they boil it down to, okay, now with our interior people, how do we make you better at your job with using this content?
If I'm a new startup and I'm going along, the journey of building out my sales team, maybe like you said, I have a founding AE that's now a sales manager with a couple of AEs below them. Maybe I haven't got to the point where I have multiple roles, like you said, but I want to start doing some sales enablement activities. What should I start with if I don't have like the budget to hire someone, for example?
Yes. So I would say you need to, like I said, there needs to be clear communication a lot of the time between your go-to-market functions. So you have your sales onboarding that you do. What is marketing doing? What is CS doing? And start organizing that so that it is one clear language that you're communicating in. I like to consolidate that language into whatever sales methodology that company is using. I did see you put out some recent content with Winning by Design on Spiced. Spiced is a sales methodology that I love using. I love teaching it.
Nice.
And at a recent company, what I did was I implemented Spiced, but then I made sure that everything that the sales engineers were pumping out, everything that CS was pumping out, and everything that marketing was pumping out was within the language of Spiced. So anything that anyone was handing over to anyone else, they were defining it within the Spiced language, and it did make everything so much easier. So start making sure that that everyone is speaking the same language. It's sales methodology. It's also like, what does your product offer? If you ask somebody like, why does somebody buy our product? Anyone within the go-to-market function should be saying the same language. But a lot of the times it's like, we're saying the same thought, but it's said in very different words.
Yeah. Right.
And so start drilling everything down that way, because if you don't have enough budget to actually hire a sales enablement person, that's going to do a lot to align everyone and make sure that everything that is being pumped out is able to be consumed by different departments or different job titles or help other people at the company.
I completely agree with that. So I got to ask this. For companies that are using something like Grain.com or Gong to sort of do their call recording and conversational intelligence, how are you seeing those tools be used to help augment sales enablement?
I would say these are my favorite type of tools. Like, I probably couldn't live without them. And I would say universally they're not being used enough. A lot of the time as a sales enablement person, I feel like so much of what I use in these tools, other people don't understand. I'll be like, I researched this, or I did it this way. And people will be like, what? How did you, what did you do? Like, there's a secret behind that. So I would say the concept, which we've touched on a little bit, but we'll probably talk more about, of like everboarding on these products. So not just being like, here it is, here's how you use it, but really drilling into, okay, now let me show you the cool things that it does and how to really use it in your job. But also I would say they're so incredibly important for sales enablement people, because not every org is going to be the size of org that has sales enablement people joining live calls. And so that's the only way that you are going to gain that knowledge. And if you aren't using these types of tools to listen to your company's actual real life sales calls, follow a real deal from the very first phone call, the very first outreach, all the way to closing the deal, you're not going to be able to design any of your sales enablement curriculum. You're just going to be guessing, like, what do my people have trouble with? What are my people really good with? We need that AI so that we can review, 20 deals in the time that it would have taken us to review one.
Yeah, I love that. And I think whether or not you're a sales enablement professional or someone moonlighting as one, I think that is exactly right. It's like, what do you know to train on, or what materials to give, or how to structure your training program if you're just guessing or maybe you just heard a few things about, it's like you really want to do a thorough analysis and breakdown of where there are problems and kind of focus some of the training on that. Is that how you think about it?
Oh, yes. My rule is I never base any sales enablement initiative on thoughts and feelings. Because I always get thoughts and feelings from sales managers. Sales managers are always like, my team always does this, or they never do this, or they have trouble with this. Same thing from sellers. They're like, this is where I get most of my money. This is where I have most of my success. I have to have something that's going to back it up. And nowadays that AI, like analyzing things and telling me, like, do they know how to talk about this? Do they know how to navigate getting to the next step in the sales process? I need real world examples that I can point to.
So you mentioned this concept of everboarding. I really like it. Can you teach me what that is?
Yes. So, 10 years ago when I got into sales enablement, it was a job title that was kind of just starting to be seen, and it was mostly at like much larger companies. And B, when you thought of it, you really only thought of onboarding. So onboarding is always the first thought when it comes to sales enablement. But now that we are growing as an industry, the concept of everboarding is growing and growing and growing. And what I always say is, when I'm onboarding you, I'm teaching you how to use every single tool at this company. I'm teaching you to live in the world of the people that we're selling to. And in the cases of like cybersecurity, sometimes that literally feels like you are having to learn a whole new language. I'm teaching you everything at once. I hate the term drinking through a fire hose just because being in sales enablement so long, I hear it all the time, but it stands true. You're absorbing so much. So I always tell my sellers when I am onboarding them, like, I don't expect you to absorb everything about this training that I'm about to give you on how to use our Salesforce.
Right.
I understand that you are just starting to learn this job. You are just starting to learn this industry. You're just starting to learn this tool. If I were to sit here and try to teach you all the cool things that our Salesforce can do, you're not going to absorb. You're going to absorb even less of it.
Information overload.
Exactly. So what I need to teach them what the basics of what they need to do their job, to sit in their seat and to get their job done. And then I need them to actually use the tool for 6+ weeks to 90 days. So they have a bunch of real world experiences that they can look back to. In fact, sometimes I like getting them on the phones when I'm in a safe place where it's fine for them to crash and burn on a phone call. Like if I have like a limited resource of people I can call, I'm not going to do this. But I like to get them on the phone as soon as possible so that when I am teaching them things that they say, I wish I knew that like an hour ago when I made a fool of myself on this phone call. But if we get them in their seat, we get them doing their job, and then we circle back and we're like, okay, now let me really teach you about this concept or this tool that I'm trying to teach you. I can now do so many things. It's going to lock in their brain so much better because they're going to always think about that crash and burn situation where they were in, and they're never going to make that mistake again. And B, I can level them up on things that I never could have presented to them the first time, because I know like if I am going to explain to you how to do something and I show you all the tips and tricks, like you're only going to pick up on like one or two. So that's the concept of everboarding, is so many people stop at onboarding and then they're just like, do your job and be good at it. And everboarding is the concept of, I want to make you better and better and better, not just at how to sell XYZ product, but how to do every aspect of your job. Things that are going to make you a better salesperson, like way down your career. So that's the concept of Everboarding.
I really like it. If I wanted to start shifting my sales team from a onboarding culture to an everboarding culture, what's one simple thing I can start doing today?
Yeah, I would say one easy thing that I do is I will put on the calendar reoccurring meetings about overarching subjects. So say I'm an org that uses the tool Outreach. Every 4 months, I'm going to have on the calendar like Outreach refresh. And
I
I'm going
like
to
it.
make it optional for anyone that wants to join, that wants to level up on their Outreach. I'm also going to make it mandatory for certain people that I've talked to their sales leaders and understand that they maybe need a little bit of help. I'm also going to try to invite a subject matter expert, even though like as a sales enablement person, I know the tool backwards and forwards. I'm going to see, is this a tool where maybe our CSM for that company should join us, or should somebody on the sales ops side, should they join us because maybe they have more insight? And this is going to be a standing thing that comes around and comes around, and we're going to, I often post like in the calendar invite, I'll post like questions that people have so they can put them in there as they think of them. And then, 3 weeks down the road when it comes up, they can be like, yeah, I tried to use XYZ in this tool. I don't think I'm using it the best. How do we use it? So set up these cadences with all of your concepts that you're trying to level people up in. So it's going to be all of your tools, but then also like parts of your product where your sellers have like a surface level knowledge and generally they can use a little bit extra. Get those on the calendar reoccurring. And then with everything new that comes out, understand this is not a one-time training. This is not a one-time thing.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you this new part of our product. You're going to take an assessment directly after it where you freshly remember everything we've just gone over and now you know it forever. Like, keep these all reoccurring and cultivate an environment where it's okay to ask questions that somebody has looked you in the eye and already told you the answer to months ago. Because if you don't cultivate that kind of environment, you're going to have sellers that never grow because they're like, I don't want my manager to know that I don't know how to do this. Yeah.
No such thing as dumb questions. It's really important culture for our learning. All right, well, we're going to move to our rapid fire segment. I'm going to just ask you some questions and then you'll quickly answer and we'll go through this really quick.
Got it.
So first is, what sales AI tools are you most excited about right now?
Yes. So the one that gets the most time off of my plate right now is Scribe. Scribe helps you do click-by-click instructions quickly. As a sales enablement person, I have people like, how do you get to this? How do you do this? All I have to do is like do the steps, and Scribe AI gives them a step-by-step instruction, and it makes my life a lot easier.
I love it. What's your favorite sales book?
I would say for like a textbook, like this is how you learn how to do sales, I would say Fanatical Prospecting is my favorite. Okay. But just as you should read this book to be a human and a salesperson, it's Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion. And that's by Dr. Robert Cialdini. And
I've heard about this book, but I haven't read it. It sounds
highly recommend.
I'll have to put that on. Have to put it on my list. That's great. What's your favorite sales quote?
My favorite sales quote is, "Hope is not a strategy," which can be linked to a longer James Cameron quote. So hope is not a strategy, luck is not a factor, fear is not an option. James Cameron may have said that, but I equate it to one of my favorite sales leaders, Martin Roth. He would say that to our team all the time. If you haven't looked him up, you should, because he's great.
I'll have to check it out. And then finally, what's the biggest challenge you faced last week and how did you solve it?
One thing that I had going on in my world last week was an age-old tale of sales and marketing trying to look at the numbers, and marketing's numbers were saying marketing was exceeding their number and sales wasn't, and then sales was exceeding but marketing wasn't. That was, seen it before. I will continue to see it. And how we solve that is we have a neutral party like sales ops create one singular dashboard that both are looking at with the same metrics so that there is no question of which numbers we're looking at.
GTM alignment, so important.
Yep.
I love it. Well, hey, Katelyn, this was a great chat. Obviously, we only scratched the surface on sales enablement, but I think it's a topic that's really worthwhile. If people want to learn more and connect, where can they find you?
I would say LinkedIn. You can contact me through my LinkedIn, or you can contact me through my consulting through Cox Attainment.
Amazing, Katelyn. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
Awesome.
Sweet.